that you can order something that's not on the menu.
Yeah.
Right. Well, okay. What we were talking about just now is that some people think that life and work is like it's like a menu, and maybe some people think it's a menu like a McDonald's menu, where you can't just say, "I'd like a steak," and you get a steak. You have to order the Big Mac or the Quarter Pounder. It's basically what you got. You got to pick one of those things. But I want a steak. But if you're in a fine restaurant, a really fine restaurant,
and I want a grilled cheese.
You often can order things that aren't on the menu at all, and the chef will be excited about that. Will be excited because the chef gets to do something special. Okay, you don't see that in McDonald's, but you don't have to eat at McDonald's. That's the point. The point is that there may be lots of pre-programmed system things. If you're going to get a government job, there are certain rules that the government has. You know, there's a particular company that wants to hire me to teach them testing. And they would like me to please take a drug test. And I said, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm not. Nah, I am so sober. I am so sober. I'll probably break their sobriety test. I'll probably break their... I don't drink. I don't smoke. You know, I drink tea. But the principle of it. It's like, you're going to make me take a drug test because I want to show up and teach for 3 days at your company? Like, no. Are you really worried that I'm going to come like completely stoned or something? You know, you can just not pay me if you're worried about that. So I just said no. I'm just not going to do it. And they said, well, that's the rule. You know, you have to do it. And I said, well, I'm not doing it. So then they said, oh, well, maybe we can make an exception. It just means you have to have an escort when you're on our premises. Oh, okay, well, I'll have an escort then. No problem. I'm just there for 3 days. It's not a big deal. But you'll have to do it if you have follow-up work. You know, I don't think I'll be having follow-up work with you strange people that are afraid of drugs.
The trust thing again.
Yeah, it's just, I don't deal with that normally. I teach all over the world. I teach at all kinds of companies. And it's this one government company, this one state government-run place in California that has this policy that's created by some kind of hysteria about drugs, and that's fine. They can be hysterical about it, but I'm just not going to go along with that hysteria. It's not a fit for me. And the thing is, if that was the only business I was getting, then I would go, it's just a drug test, big deal. I'll just do it. It's just an inconvenience. But it's not the only thing. I've got lots and lots of other work, so I can afford to say no to that. So sometimes I will jump through hoops when I really want to get something that's really nice. And other times I won't jump through the hoops because it's not that important to me. But I choose. That's the thing, is you don't have to jump through the hoops. The thing is that people, so many kids especially, are kind of indoctrinated to think that your life is like, well, it's high school, then it's college, and then once you get your degree, then all the doors open to you and you get hired automatically. That's not at all how it works. And you especially know this because in sports, it doesn't work that way. You know, 100 people can want to be a pitcher. One person's going to get it. I mean, 100 qualified people. I mean, 100 people who are pitchers are going to want to be professional pitchers. And one person, maybe, I don't know what the ratio is, but it's got to be something like 1 out of 100 actually goes pro. Even if it's 5 out of 100 who want to go pro, only 1 out of those 5 is going to make any significant amount of money. The rest of them are going to make very little money in the farm system, right? And then when you make a lot, even if you make a lot of money and go pro, there's a difference between going pro and being in the pros for 12 years and going pro and being in the pros for 2 years, making the minimum amount and then blowing your arm out, and like now you don't have a career anymore. Yeah, what do you have? So we hope, if our education system works well, we hope what people have is a sense that, oh, okay, well, I did that. I can do anything else I want to do. You know, so my arm's gone. So I'll become a scout, or I'll work in some other I'll be an announcer. I'll do something else that requires the deep knowledge of baseball, and I'll train people for baseball. I've done it. I've got my street cred. Now I'll be a trainer. I'll be a coach. I'll be something else like that. I'll be a manager of some team somewhere. So there's all kinds of other possibilities. That resiliency is really what you need. It's the resiliency, the feeling that there's probably some possibility. Oh, there's 2 movies that you need to get people to see in your class. You probably should force them to see these movies on class time. You should see Man on Wire. Have you heard of this movie, Man on Wire? It's about a guy who does something that's impossible. Even he thinks it's impossible, but he ends up doing it. And he just plans this thing even though it's impossible. And what he plans to do is to walk a tightrope between the Twin Towers. And he doesn't do it with permission. He actually mounts like a bank heist kind of thing to do this because he knew he could never get permission. So he didn't even bother to ask. I don't even think he ever even tried to ask. He just put together a team in 1974, and they figured out how to fake their way in and string a tightrope and then walk back and forth on this tightrope. And this guy did it. But he all the way through he's thinking like it probably can't be done. It probably can't be done. I don't really see a way to do it. Oh, but then he meets somebody who's inside the building who helps him. Someone who was in the top floor and kind of likes what he's doing. It's just exactly what we're talking about. He meets somebody.
Connection.
He gets the right connection.
Connections.
And that person allows him to hide, to deliver this crate of tightrope, high wire, and hide it right underneath the top of the building, so that later on they can come one night and sneak past the guards and do this. And it's just a great example of a guy who just wants to do this crazy thing, but he actually is amazingly well prepared to do this crazy thing. He works hard for years to get to the point where he can do it, but he does it. So that's Man on Wire. The other thing that you need to see, and the kids need to see this, I think, is a documentary called Philosopher Kings. It's a series of interviews with custodians who work at universities. And it shows how interesting lives these guys have. And
What's it
makes
called?
It's called Philosopher Kings. Or
Kings?
The Philosopher Kings.
Okay.
Yeah, and one guy is he's a janitor at an art school. But he himself has become an artist, and it shows him working on his various art projects. Yeah, and that's why he wanted to be a custodian at an art school.
Right.
He wanted basically free access to all this stuff,
Right.
which he makes use of, the space and the tools, and he has access to all this stuff because he's a janitor working in the place.
So I guess what I'm really wanting these kids to see is you are at a restaurant where you can order whatever you want, and if you choose wisely, you'll get to hang out and start making these connections now instead of when you're 20 or 30.
That's the thing that kids don't realize is that later on they'll look back and say, I could have done that.
Yeah.
Because when I was a kid is when people really want to help me. The older you get, the less people want to help you. Actually.
I agree that
because I figure you should know how to do it by yourself. You're 25.
And
What's wrong with you? But when you're 16, they're like, yeah, I'll help you out because you probably don't know how to get